All right, we are back. I don't know what episode this is, but it's an episode. 69. I am your host, Jacob
Not on
Harris.
trend, by the way.
Who's on trend?
Not me.
Not on trend. Okay, all right. At this point, I should just try it. But I'm not currently on trend either. I'm Jacob Harris.
I'm Connor Walsh.
And we're here to talk about stuff. The stuff today we're going to talk about is magnesium and brain peptides. Magnesium mainly because, to be honest, I get asked about it all the time by clients of just like, which form and which one should I buy and stuff. And I think it'd just be cool to cover lots of different forms because there is tons. And brain peptides, because every motherfucker that I know at the moment is like, hey man, have you heard of this brain peptide? I got a shit diet, never sleep, and I sit on my phone for 6 hours a day, but this brain peptide will make my life better. And I'm like, cool man, that sounds awesome. And there's also a few of them. So in my head, I'm like, are these guys going to start taking like, what happens if I take like 5 or 6 brain peptides? Am I just going to be like fucking Professor X and shit? Like I can hear people's thoughts and levitate. We're going to find out. We're going to start by talking about magnesium. We're going to get straight into it. There is many, many forms. I got tons here, but the main one, we're going to start with the most obvious ones. Obviously, citrate is would you say citrate's probably the most common one?
I'd say oxide is probably the most common form. It's the cheapest form. It's generally going to make up the majority of most of your cheap magnesium blends. If you look at it, they'll generally have a very, very small portion of some of your catchier name ones, your Glycinate, your Threonate, something like that sells the product as the kind of front label. And then the majority of the actual magnesium content will come from magnesium oxide form.
Right. I guess when I say citrate, when I think common, I think like useful. So when I said common, I meant useful. Oxide is super common, especially in like the complex. I've got like a complex one in my cupboard, and it's dog shit. It's just like 90% the cheapest magnesium. I guess to me, I think of like the two. So for instance, I always think like when in the shopping center, you've got like, you know, we all know we walk past the supplement aisle and everything's always on special. It's like one of those fucking kitchen stores, and they have magnesium, just magnesium, like the Swiss one, and that's citrate. And then they have a dedicated glycinate one, I think it is. And then like you can't specifically buy any other ones. It's just like they're the ones. So that's why in my head, I'm like, they're the ones that are common. But I suppose, you know, yeah, in a lot of cheap supplements, they're not. Citrate obviously being I'm going to call it a diarrhea one. I'm going to call it's not the diarrhea one, but it is the diarrhea.
Yeah, that would be the primary reason why you'd use citrate.
Well, we're not going to talk about it too much in this one. Connor's a bit of a colonoscopy experiencer, and I'm going to be at some point soon as well, which I'm not looking forward to. But that is what they give you, right? They give you a big old bottle of citrate to drink.
I believe that's one of the things. I don't think it is the entirety of the solution.
Right.
To be honest, the solution time is not a fun time, and I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the other ingredients. But not something I really recommend doing.
Sweet. Looking forward to it. Glad that that's your review of it. Because if anyone can go through a hard time, it's you. And if you reckon it's bad, then that's going to be not.
It's really just like if you've ever water loaded for a water cut, like you've got to get that kind of volume of fluid down, but the fluid entirely tastes like crap. That's the hardest part. So you got like 7 liters of the bowel prep solution, or at least I think maybe it changes to weight, so it might have just been more because I'm obviously a little bit on the heavier side. But it's something in the nature of like 7 liters, and it just all tastes like shit. It's like difficult to drink.
I've seen a few people say this exact thing as well, and that definitely concerns me. But moving away from poo, because we can't do a whole thing on that. But citrate, that's the common thing, right? Of like, don't take too much, otherwise you'll get some diarrheas. Glycinate recently I got a little bit of, just because that's like, glycinate is really common in terms of like, okay, so first of all, what would you put up there in terms of like the best for recovery? I feel like citrate's pretty up there in terms of like muscle recovery, at least as far as I know, where like glycinate, for example, when we move on to that, is more like you're kind of meant to be your more relaxation one. So it's always inside those like sleep supplements. You know, they have like sleep supplements, and they'll have like, what are those weird things they always pair them with? You know what I'm talking about? The flower.
Passion flower, probably.
Stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So look, as far as magnesium forms that I use, citrate and oxide, in my opinion, so pretty much the same benefits. They are a cheap form of relatively low to moderate bioavailable magnesium that both have the benefit or drawback, depending on how you look at it, of pulling fluid into the GI tract and helping with bowel movements. I actually don't mind a little bit of oxide if a person has issues with dry, hard stools. As I said, it's very cheap, and it does bring fluid into the GI tract, which helps with loosening and softening of the stools. It is a lower bioavailability form, so you are going to get and absorb less magnesium from an oxide versus, say, something like a bisglycinate or glycinate. And then as far as your more bioavailable forms and kind of relaxation, the only one I really use is glycinate. And you have kind of two benefits around the magnesium glycinate. One, magnesium itself is a lot more bioavailable than your other forms like the citrate and oxide. So you are actually going to absorb and utilize more of the magnesium milligram for milligram as far as the elemental content from the glycinate versus the other forms. And the second benefit and the main reasons to why is the sleep or relaxation form of magnesium is actually pretty completely irrelevant to the magnesium portion of it. But obviously, when we're looking at these are magnesium salts. So a portion of it is a magnesium, and then the rest of the compound is made up by another compound completely to make a salt. So magnesium glycinate is magnesium and a glycine salt. Glycine is a central nervous system regulatory compound. It allows CNS kind of to wind down. I believe there is also a little bit of GABA interplay there as well. So it's not actually the magnesium with magnesium glycinate that is helping particularly with the winding down. It is the glycine portion that's attached to it. Magnesium in general does have some calming properties, but the additional benefit to magnesium glycinate is actually the glycine portion, not the magnesium.
Irrelevant anyway, though, if you're taking it and experiencing the benefit, I suppose. Like, interesting to know that that's why the difference is. But if someone's taking it and they're sleeping well, then happy days. So now I was like moving into some of the ones that I've never really bothered with. I've seen people talk about, this is going to pair in with the brain stuff, but like Threonate. Is that the way you say it?
It's the only other one that I think has much kind of use.
Mm-hmm. And you think just because of here I've got like brain health, cognitive function, but like, I wonder how noticeable that is.
So look, I have played around with a little bit of magnesium threonate. I personally didn't see much difference. Had a few clients that seem to prefer it. Firstly, it is also quite bioavailable, similar to glycinate, so you're going to get more of the magnesium from it or absorb more of the elemental magnesium from it. The second main reason as to why it's maybe beneficial over other forms is it's supposed to be able to cross the blood-brain barrier more efficiently than other forms of magnesium, so it may have a bit more of a benefit on things like clearing brain fog and stuff of that nature. Having said that, I didn't personally notice much of it. That may just be because I'm not particularly magnesium deficient or something along those lines. There may be more of a cognitive benefit to someone who is maybe magnesium deficient, and that's threonate is more able to cross the blood-brain barrier and make up some of that deficiency through neural tissue and stuff of that nature. But personally, I didn't really notice anything that I could really put down to increase cognition from magnesium threonate.
There's some of these benefits are funny, right? Because then you've got something like Malate, right? And then they talk about like, it's often used for people who have like fatigue, and it's like a chronic fatigue, magnesium. But
I haven't really looked into Malate beyond outside of oxide, citrate, glycinate, and the very rare occasional use of threonate. I really don't prescribe any other magnesium outside of those four.
What do you think about taurate? Because this is one I was not familiar with, and apparently there is some it's cardiovascular. The cardiovascular magnesium, apparently, where it's could be good for palpitations, which I get lots of. So maybe I should trial it.
I'm not familiar with it, but I'm going to guess that there is some form of taurine salt that is attached to magnesium just based off the name. Taurine does have some impact on electrolyte regulation, so that's kind of where I would assume cardiovascular benefits come from the magnesium. Magnesium itself is quite important actually in blood pressure regulation too. It is one of the things that kind of counter with calcium to control vasoconstriction and dilation. So magnesium is going to more promote the dilation of blood vessels. If someone is magnesium deficient, they're typically going to have a more constricted blood vessel, which often leads to high blood pressure, more vascular resistance, and worse blood flow. So magnesium deficiency in itself is going to be, negative on cardiac or just all general cardiovascular health.
Yeah. Okay. So we all know what this is going to come down to anyway, right? Because it's like just fucking get enough magnesium, and it doesn't really matter that much about where you're getting it from, right? Like, especially, look, if you can eat enough, which I don't know many people that can, then you don't have to worry too much. But at the end of the day, if you're eating well and you're taking magnesium, you're probably fine in terms of like, you're doing everything you can from a magnesium standpoint. There is some other ones, obviously. Here we've got like orotate, which I've not I don't know too much about, but that says it's an athletic performance, cardiac support. I imagine it's very similar in the sense that you mentioned with the taurine salt, like not necessarily that it contains that, but obviously they've just combined something in there that I'm sure is meant to help in that regard. That being said, I don't know whether that would be present in even complexes because I've never seen it listed. I'd say you'd have to specifically get that as similar to, whereas like there's oxide listed here. We know that that's in all of those. And then magnesium chloride is like a whole different thing, right? Because that's usually that's in like oils and shit, right? I'm assuming that's when you know in you know these magnesium sprays and stuff you rubs and things like that, which is another whole thing. Because I look, every now and then I'll chuck some Epsom salts in the bath, and for me it's a relaxation thing. But for a long time ago, I remember a while ago there being a big thing about the whole like like you can't even really absorb it through your skin correctly and shit like that. What's your stance on that?
I've done a bit of back and forth on this. I believe the literature shows uneven or like irregular absorption of magnesium through skin, through different forms. It's probably not pointless. But oral magnesium is generally speaking going to be a lot more, I guess, calculated of a dosing. It's well established kind of your needs and generally speaking probably a more efficient route to go by things. However, I'm not against Epsom salt bath or something, particularly if it has, there's cognitive benefits to it in terms of just pure, I guess, placebo. You know, you're in a warm bath, you think there's magnesium salts, you're relaxing. There's still benefits to something of that nature, regardless of whether you're actually getting an improved magnesium status or not. So I'm not against any of that kind of stuff. But in terms of, it wouldn't be the way I'd be suggesting going about fixing a magnesium deficiency if you had one.
Like anything, right? Ingesting it usually is the way to go. If you can inject it, so make sure you inject your Epsom bath salts, guys, right? Melt it down on a spoon, inject it. Don't do that. That's probably a bad idea. But yeah, the last one listed here was sulfate anyway, and there's probably like one or two that we've missed that are super niche.
Is magnesium sulfate could be Epsom salts, actually.
It is, yeah. So that's why those last two were probably listed together, which was the sulfate and the chloride, right? Because they're probably all just like rubs, salts, things, stuff where you're not ingesting it. But the main thing, or the main takeaway here is...
I actually think possibly that magnesium sulfate actually could be the form that is usually given IV. Let me just Google this for you, Jacob.
Ooh, okay. Connor's going to do a Google.
Pretty sure it's magnesium sulfate is the form that they normally will give you with a... Yeah, it is. Yeah. Medication primarily used in hospitals to treat severe hypomagnesemia, low blood magnesium, prevent life-threatening seizures in pregnant women. Gives you a bit further. But if you were to get a IV, which is something that I...
Stay in the frame, Connor. I know you're huge, but stay in the frame.
Sorry, I was there we go, back on. I can see myself now. So yeah, like if you were to go and get magnesium, say post weigh-in, and you were getting like an IV drip after a dehydration protocol or something of that nature, magnesium sulfate is generally going to be the form that they will give you in the IV bag as well.
Yeah, okay. It makes sense now that you kind of... This is why I wanted to kind of go over them all, even though there's like, obviously we established it like malate and taurate and stuff like that. Maybe not the... it's not something we know tons about, but at the same time, like... Generally, things are in the limelight when they're worth being there. It's not like people aren't taking malate and everyone's got chronic fatigue because of that. Like, it's like chances are it's just... PedTest Australia is a WA-based company providing at-home testing kits for a range of black market substances, underground or counterfeit drugs that can often contain a different substance than what they claim, or nothing at all. In 2024, 5% of oil-based steroids contained no active ingredient. Oral steroids were even worse, 12% contained no active ingredient. PedTest Australia kits provide a quick and cost-effective method of screening products before they are used. Kit results help users make informed decisions about substances they choose to take and therefore reduce the risks they are exposed to. Don't take chances with your health and gains. Test it before you take it. Go to pedtestaustralia.com to order your test kits. Bulk Gym Chalk Australia are your go-to suppliers for gym chalk. Whether you are doing powerlifting, weightlifting, strongman, gymnastics, or running a competition event and need bulk supplies and prizes, they've got you covered. Options include block chalk, bowl chalk, liquid chalk, or invisible liquid chalk for those gyms where you aren't allowed other options. They even have a range of athlete recovery bath salts to soak those training aches away. Check out the range at www.bulkgymchalk.com.au. maybe it's not that bioavailable. Maybe it's just expensive for what it is, and people don't even really notice the difference. Like, as we have really established here, this is just so that I can send it to clients and be like, hey, I'm going to answer the question about magnesium, but also like, here's 15 minutes of us talking about the different kinds so that you can get an idea about it. And, overall, consume enough magnesium in your diet. Take, supplement with some magnesium. It's probably a good idea because chances are you're not consuming enough in your diet, depending on what kind of your activity levels are like and all those sorts of things. And, if you want to chuck in an Epsom salt bath or something like that, it's fine. But just remember that it's kind of a little bit of icing on the top. And fourthly, I don't really know anyone that is magnesium deficient in terms of like to the point where it's like they have been labeled that. It's usually just that people don't have enough, but people survive.
I do actually have one thing I would like to add on this, and it's not actually magnesium related, but it can be a good one for the clients and something I recently learnt. I will have to say I do need to do a little bit of follow-up reading on this before I'm 100% confident in it. But Dan Garner, someone who I highly recommend following if you're into sports performance and the kind of, I guess, physiology side of things behind it, put up a post about some research papers that were done on every other day iron supplementation, particularly in females with iron deficiency. And it appears that there is quite a significant improvement in iron absorption if dosing in every other day dosing versus every single day. There seems to be some interaction with hepcidin, which blocks iron absorption to some degree. With regular dosing, it's kind of telling the body that it can't absorb everything and doesn't want to absorb everything. But with the every other day dosing, you have time for the hepcidin, I believe that's how it's pronounced, to kind of reset and allow for improved iron absorption when the next dose actually is administered. This isn't practice that I've used with clients. This is something I've really recently learnt. But given how common iron deficiency is, it's certainly something that's worth looking into for some people, especially if you've been on regular iron supplementation for some time and haven't been able to make any notable improvements in your levels.
Interesting. Okay. So less is more sort of situation a little bit.
Less frequency, probably the same total amount, but instead of doing it daily, you would take 3 larger doses throughout the week instead of across 7 smaller doses.
Still relevant for a conversation about absorption. So that is interesting. Yeah. Well, that's iron's a big one too. We're going to keep this tight because me and Connor want to start being able to do these a bit more regularly. And we also spent like 45 minutes trying to set up the camera. So Connor did and I just spectated. But we're going to talk about brain peptides. And this is obviously, we know Connor's going to do a little bit more breaking down for us. So I've just, more than anything, it's just annoyed the fuck out of me lately. I just feel like I know people who are just treating their brains like absolute toilets, and then they're talking about brain peptides, and it just annoys me, right? So we're going to talk about like Semax. Would you say Semax is like pretty common? I feel like that's one I've heard a lot of people mention to me.
Pretty common, yeah. Probably the most common, most readily available, cheapest. Not a huge fan of it, especially not injected. Never really did anything particularly impressive for me, at least not at a dose that was cost viable. Intranasally, I think it is a modest, acute, I guess, cognitive enhancement with focus, memory retention, stuff of that nature. Really cannot remember any of the deep pharmacokinetics and dynamics and everything of the drug. It's not something that I really I haven't looked into it for a very long period of time. I kind of discarded its use.
I hate to do this to you, Connor, but do you think that maybe you can't remember because you're not currently using Semax? Do you think if you were using it?
Look, I will say I do actually still have some Semax in my fridge because I got some cheap a long time ago and I've still got some there and I occasionally use it.
Do you want it? What if you just quickly went and bumped? What if you just did a bump off the kitchen bench? Do you think you'd remember when you came back what you some of them?
I can try. I'm open to it.
Yeah, if anyone is, it's you. But this is my question about it. What's the practicality of this, right? People are like, I've noticed an improvement. And we've talked about this before, right? Like the whole peptide thing, people act like it's life-changing and then it'll be the smallest. To me, I'm like, are you telling? So if I take the Semax, right, all of a sudden, I forget where my fucking remote is all the time, right? Do I remember where it is now? Like, is my life, is that the life-changing experience that I'm having? How do you even quantify the improvement? Am I really remembering things more than I was now? Is it a placebo? You know what I mean?
Look, it's very acute, especially if you're using it intranasally. I would compare it really more in terms of the way it works is a bit different, but I would honestly compare it fairly similarly to like a cup of coffee, like a good strong cup of coffee. It's not It does have mild stimulatory nature, so you probably will get a mild increase in heart rate and stuff of that kind of nature. It is, I believe the primary medical use of Semax is actually in very early on in stroke treatment. And I believe there is actually some pretty profound benefits there with preventing neural damage and stuff of that nature that occurs from a stroke, especially if administered like immediately. So on that front, there is definitely merit on the neuroprotective side of things. Don't think too many people actually take Semax as a neuroprotective agent. I think most people that are taking Semax are actually looking for the acute cognitive benefit that it offers. Some people seem to get pretty decent results. Most of the people that I've used it with have modest results. My personal experience with it is at doses below about 2 milligrams injected. It does almost nothing. 2 milligrams of an injected Semax is a pretty expensive nootropic. I'd personally rather take modafinil, but if you've got spare coin and I don't know, maybe you're an online coach or something of that nature, does a lot of computer work, it may be worth a trial. I wouldn't hold high hopes for it being this big, massive, like productive game changer that's going to take you to a 20K a month fucking entrepreneur or whatever. It's nothing like that.
So yeah, I mean, at this point, I guess we can also refer to a few finer points there. You mentioned that there's some actually, you can see like a bit of an elevation in heart rate and stuff, which I don't know if people prefer that. I don't like that. Whereas something like modafinil, we don't see that, right? We don't see changes in blood pressure or heart rate.
Less so.
Okay.
The amount with Semax is still going to vary. It's still not going to be like significant like caffeine. Modafinil can still have like a modest increase in heart rate and blood pressure. It's just much less significant when compared to other similar class drug stimulants like dexamphetamine, for example.
Yeah, Vyvanse, things like that.
Yeah, very different to that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, how would you compare it to? Well, I mean, from what I can tell, one of these is a lot better than the other one, or that's the way I've seen people talk about it. I want to talk about the next one is Selank, but what I actually want to refer it to is I actually want to talk about is Cerebrolysin.
Yeah.
Oh, or Cerebrolysin. That sounds a little bit more sciencey.
Yeah. Look, I've used it. It's probably the most complex of the three. There's almost no point in talking about it because no one in Australia is going to be able to access it. I can't use it anymore. I can't get it. No one else is going to be able to get it.
Can you give us a brief rundown, just because the Peptide Bros?
Here's the clickbait fucking title for the video.
Sit back a bit, but yes, please.
It's derived from pig's brains. It's made from pig-derived brain neurotropic factors. Russian-made. Yeah, look, in terms of uses, quite effective for general central nervous system regulation in terms of strength athletes. The use of Cerebrolysin alongside like a heavy peaking phase does seem to be able to push out, I guess, the amount of cumulative fatigue you can deal with before performance starts to decline and sleep and stuff like that starts to take a hit. I believe there is a little bit of research along like the Alzheimer's routes and stuff of that nature. It has got a fairly high neuroprotective profile. I believe one of the neurotropic factors that's in there is similar to brain-derived neurotropic factor, or like pig's version of brain-derived neurotropic factor. Injectable, very high volume.
Do you know anyone that's taken it?
Quite a few people that have taken it. It used to be accessible. It's not accessible anymore.
But you've never personally experienced
it? Yeah, no, I have taken it, yeah.
And how was the difference between that and something like Semax? Like, was it like extremely not
drugs? And if people think that the two can be compared, then they need to do more research on the drugs.
Right. So vastly different, and you wish you could still get it, sort of thing.
Look, I'd probably use it from time to time. Cerebrolysin, out of all of these drugs that peptides, whatever, that we've kind of listed to talk about today, Cerebrolysin would be probably the most likely that I would to use if I had access to it.
And I guess two questions would be like, was it expensive when you were getting it, or is it expensive? Okay. And why is it no longer accessible here? They're just the regulations too tight?
The only place you can get legit Cerebrolysin is through Russia, and I believe the whole Russian conflict kind of pretty much kapooed that. You used to be able to get it through Cosmic Nootropics and some of the international nootropic places that no longer ship to Australia because nothing just gets passed anymore. A lot of it just comes down to customs just not letting a lot of it through. It does pop up on some peptide sites. If you actually do some research on the legitimate Cerebrolysin and look at the milligram per mil that's in real Cerebrolysin, and then look at how much milligram of Cerebrolysin is in the entire vial that you're getting, you'd need to use multiple vials per dose. It's just never going to, like, no one in Australia has access really, unless you're like, if you've got access to like legit proper Russian Cerebrolysin in Australia, then congratulations.
Hit your boy up if you've got that. So Selank is Selank's also Russian as well.
All of these drugs that you've mentioned are Russian-derived drugs, I believe. Yeah.
Man, the Russians know what they're doing, eh? They know what they're doing. I mean, they don't always know what they're doing. Sometimes they're doing some questionable things. But Selank's more anxiety. It's like more of an anxiety one, right? And that also comes in nasal spray.
Selank is one that I use with a few more clients. I do see it having more of an application. I believe there is some mild, neuroprotective effects of Selank. I can't remember exactly. The main mechanism of action of Selank is I believe it's an analog or a variation of tufsin, which is an immune-based peptide. Whatever the variation, it's done, it's like another 3 amino acids added to a tufsin sequence. Allows it to have an anxiolytic effect, has some modulations through the GABAergic system to promote calming. It also has some mild crossover with serotonergic signaling as well. So obviously it can give you a little bit of it's kind of almost like preparing the body to be better deal with the onset of something that's going to cause anxiety is effectively the kind of best way to describe it.
So if I am about to run into someone at the shops whose first name I can't remember and I don't have a secondary person to rely on that I can introduce them to so that they can then mention their first name, which will jog my memory, and I'm going to have to speak to them the entire time knowing that I can't call them by that name, I can take some Selank before that and I can feel more relaxed about that interaction.
The intranasal stuff, actually does have like a pretty immediate onset.
I appreciate your straight up answer to my humorous
legit
scenario. Yeah.
And it's one of the areas that's one of the scenarios that I would actually prescribe. Well, I'm not a doctor. I don't prescribe anything. One of the scenarios that I would suggest having intranasal Selank around is if you are someone who runs into acute, minor, anxious type situations like that. If it's public anxiety, whatever. Maybe it's just particularly a bad day. Some days people deal with it better than others. When you're in a not so great mindset for that particular day and you have to go and be in a public interaction that might make you a little bit anxious, you could literally have a little bit before you go, and it's probably going to make your time a little bit easier.
So if I see that person walking towards me, right, and I'm thinking like, is it Greg? Is it Steve? Is it John? I fucking can't remember. And then I'm just like, who fucking cares? You know what I mean? Yeah, bro.
Old mate today.
Yeah, hit him with a big fucking Hulk Hogan brother and just pull him in. Yeah. Nice. What do you think the difference is then, given that they're all Russian peptides, right? Why is it? I mean, we've talked about this before. Selank is a little bit harder to get, but as you've said, some clients have used it. Why is it that some are available and some aren't? Is it just because of where it comes from?
So Semax and Selank are peptides. So they can be synthesized from an amino acid sequence, very easy to synthesize, very cheap, very readily available, pretty easy to get in Australia. Cerebrolysin, I believe, is some form of actual extract from the pig's brain. Could be a little bit wrong on that, but it is not like a normal peptide where the peptides are amino acid sequences put together to synthetically make a peptide. Semax, Selank, if you've got the raw amino acid products and the machinery to do so, you can just continue to produce. Just repeat that peptide, make the peptide the same way growth hormone's made, the same way insulin's made, the same way BPC is made, the same way TB500's made. Cerebrolysin's completely different altogether.
Right. Yeah, okay. Maybe we can cover some of those more hardcore ones in the next one as well. We are going to keep this pretty tight because leaving him wanting more is something I'm learning. And me and Connor have done some fucking long podcasts, so we're actually going to keep this at a tight half an hour. And if you're thinking, no, wait, don't wrap it up, it's all good because we'll be back next week and we're going to talk about something else. And we're going to keep this theme because we all know you want to hear Connor talk about drugs, and I like listening to it as well. But then we're going to talk about something that affects regular humans. So we're going to probably run these as a bit of a two-parter. We'll always talk about some form of supplement or something nutrition-based or something like that. And then we'll always pair it with some drug-based talk. So if you guys have any suggestions or you're even still listening, then make sure you do. Remember that this podcast is sponsored by and partly brought to you by Ped Test Australia and Bulk Gym Chalk. So head over to those guys for some good chalk and to get your drugs tested after we talk about them.
I'll just quickly interject on Ped Test Australia's side. Quality of stuff is getting far worse again. I know we've said this a trillion times, but things are starting to look just like marginally better. And sorry, clients, the quality of things, like even just basic testosterone now, the amount of clients I'm seeing pull labs and have considerably underdosed testosterone is alarming. And when I say considerably, I mean things are like 50% dosed. And I'm seeing it probably close to 1 in 5 people's testosterone are more underdosed than what can be worked with.
That's not ideal. I personally, bit old school, but I'm currently producing my own testosterone. it's whatever. It's whatever, not a lot of it, but like enough currently. But yeah, look, it's tough times, man. It's not good to hear that. We'll obviously keep this updated as we go, right? Because the situation's obviously, it might get a bit worse, might get a little bit better, but hopefully, at least if people are aware of it, you can take the time to possibly get some of this stuff tested, because it's really important. You could be on something for 6 months and you could have found out within the first month if it's no good. So don't wait. Take care of yourself. And Connor, do you have anything else you would like to finish this one with?
Oh, really?
Boom. That's it then. I'm Jacob Harris.
I'm Connor Walsh.
And this has been All or Nothing. We'll see you next time.